Good evening, everybody, and welcome. My name is Nick, and I help direct events here at the Strand. Before we launch into tonight's event with Mirtha Michelle and Karah Preiss, I'd like to share a little bit of history about the Strand. The Strand was founded in 1927 by Benjamin Bass on 4th Avenue's Book Row. Stretching from Union Square to Astor Place, Book Row gradually dwindled from 48 bookstores until, after 93 years, the Strand is the sole survivor, now run by third-generation owner Nancy Bass-Wyden. We want to thank all of you for your support. Without our loyal community of book lovers, we wouldn't be here today. Tonight, we are excited to have with us Mirtha Michelle, a Dominican-born poet, author, actress, and artist. She wrote the best-selling poetry book, Letters to the Men I Have Loved, which spent over 2 years in the top 20 best-selling love poems category on Amazon. She has authored Elusive Loves, a bilingual compilation of love poems, and Letters to Women Like Me, a compilation of essays and poems. Her work also spans outside of literature to television, film, and speaking engagements at colleges across the country. Joining Mirtha in conversation tonight is Karah Preiss, an experienced content producer and writer based in New York City. Along with actress Emma Roberts, she founded Belletrist, a social media first community for book lovers, which they have recently turned into a film/TV producing vehicle called Belletrist Productions. They are currently in a first look deal for TV at Hulu. Through Belletrist, Karah and Emma are on a mission to promote reading as an accessible and unique form of self-care, which we all dearly need nowadays. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Mirtha Michelle and Karah Preiss to the stage.
How are you?
Good,
Hi,
thank
guys.
you. This is what a world, I guess.
I know, can't believe this is 2020.
I know, but thank you so much for being here, and congratulations on your, I guess what they call in the industry, your pub date. It's very exciting.
The birthday, right?
Right, book birthday, exactly.
Thank you for doing this with us. When I was asked who I wanted to moderate the conversation, I've always been a fan of Belletrist, so when they suggested to reach out to you, I was like, oh my God, yes, I'd love that. So thank you so much.
That's so nice. Thank you. You're a beautiful poet, and there's someone who works with us at Belletrist who's a friend of yours who speaks so highly of you. So I was really excited to meet you, actually, for the first time.
I love Paige.
Paige is the best. Shout out to Paige, who's probably here right now. So this book is called 18 Inches. Do you have the book on you right now, just so we can show it to people who? It's a beautiful. Is that you on the cover?
Yes, that's me. This cover actually has a really interesting story. I was originally going to use the illustrator that has illustrated my previous books, and there was an issue that didn't turn out, and I maybe 2 weeks before that, I had had a photo shoot, and while we were at the shoot, I saw the photographer he's very talented, and he did some motion images. And this was one of the images in black and white. And when my assistant and we saw it, we were like, oh my God, this feels like a book cover. But I thought, we were already going forward with the illustration. So when the illustration fell through, we were like, oh my God, this is the time that we could use that picture. And so my publisher, Andrew McNeil, when that whole ordeal happened, I was like, I have a great picture that maybe you guys could do something with. So they turned it into this color and to match my previous books. Mm-hmm. And I think I love it even more than the illustration, to be honest. So it all worked out.
It's a gorgeous cover.
And it gives this ambiguity, and what I really love is that it doesn't have, if you pick up this book, there's no author photo in the book. So no one necessarily needs to know that this is me. But for the people that know how I look like, they're probably like, okay, yeah, that's Mirtha. Right.
And also it's, I mean, in terms of what the poems are about, what the book is about, like this, it kind the blurring effect kind of gives it this anonymity that like sort of speaks to how, I think, you know, after reading the book, how sort of what, you know, far reaching your message is. Like it's, you know, it's specific obviously to your life, but I think most people, men and women, could, you know, sort of appreciate the message in the book, especially women. So I thought the cover really spoke to that sort of the anonymity, I guess, I don't know, of any sort of woman's face sometimes. So the first thing that I guess I wanted to ask you to do, if you'd be so kind, is if you could read a few of your poems just so people can get a sense of your voice, and especially the poems in this book.
So, you know, the premise of this book, I'd like to tell the viewers, the premise is the distance between the heart and the head and the decisions we make. And while I was writing this book, I'm always growing. I'm always growing. But while I was writing this book, I felt that I was seeking something bigger than just romantic love. And I wanted to fill myself. Like, I wanted to fill my soul. I was soul searching, heavier than I had done with the previous books. And I took a lot of consideration, like my relationship with human beings in general. And so I want to read, the first poem is actually the introductory poem of the book. It doesn't have a title. I don't think it needed a title. Most people, when they read this book and they've read my other work, they'll realize that I did something different. I didn't really give titles. I gave mainly conclusions. So it goes like this. When I asked for growth, why was I surprised that I was given rain? When I asked for friendship, why was I torn when the weeds were pulled from my flower beds? When I asked for courage, why did I fear when the day of battle came? When I asked for love, why did I cry when I had to face pain? And it's
I'm giving you virtual snaps.
It's all about growth, right? And sometimes we ask the universe, like God, whatever you believe in, you want to progress to the next level, or you know, sometimes we ask, oh, I want great friendship, but sometimes you have to let go of the friendships that don't serve you. And in all of those stages, we experience pain to grow. And, you know, and that was the premise. And I feel like that's the entire theme of the book. That sometimes you have to experience difficult circumstances. You have to experience the pain to reach love. And that's why I started the book. The first inch is pain. And the last inch, the 18th inch, is love. Yeah. And, you know, and I'd like to tell people that in the end, these are all my personal truths. I gave a warning. Not everyone is going to agree with everything I believe in or I say in the book. And who believes in everything that someone else believes in, right? But I hope that when people read the book, they can take what resonates with their souls and apply that. And I hope it helps people. Yeah. I'll read another poem.
Let's
go for a more romantic one, because I know the romance.
Well, just while you're looking for it, what you were saying that I really loved is, and we'll go back to this because I want to talk to you about the title a little more after you read your poetry, but the way you sort of, each chapter is an inch. So when you say 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inches, those are your chapter headings, which I really loved. which is a nice way through the book.
Yeah, it's funny because my the person who proofread the book kept on saying something about that. I was like, no. Is that it has to be that
You're like,
way.
no, that's what it is.
That's the whole purpose, how I envision it like that. She was
Right.
like, you don't do that when you do that. I was like, no, I know what I'm doing. Thank you.
So what section is this from?
This next poem is from the second inch. And I don't have that much romance in the book because this is more about soul searching and growth, and not everything revolves around romantic love. Although a lot of people that have read my other work, they've probably been like, well, what do you mean? And that's all you've spoken about. That's all you've written about. But, I'm growing, and I haven't had any terrible negative experiences in love recently for me to write about. So it's either that.
Congratulations.
Or, thank you. It's actually a great thing. But I have these 2 chapters that they are about romantic love and about loss in romantic love, and that feeling of you can't be with your soulmate anymore kind of vibe. So this inch is titled Destiny. And this poem, I think I remember where I was for most of the poems that I've written, and exactly what I was going through. And this one is no different. It goes like this. My heart feels heavy. There are 1,000 silent bricks weighing it down. With my yearning, it is my soul yearning for him. At times, I feel a magnetic pull toward him, wherever in the world he might be. It is my soul dancing toward him. I imagine his face just as if it was the last time I saw him. I can trace every feature and line. A tear trickles from my right eye while in my transient state. I wonder, can he feel me thinking of him? I wonder, can he feel me feeling him? The unexplainable science of missing someone's energy.
I actually highlighted that when I read it, just because I personally, or do you have another poem you want to read?
Sure.
And then I'll go into more questions. I also really like, I'm sure other people who are watching like listening to you read. You're an actor, so you bring a lot to the reading.
I'm like, which one should I have like 2 more? We do another romantic one, or should we do another one about?
Sure. Love the romantic ones.
Okay. So this one might be my favorite poem in one of my favorites, like top 5 in the entire book. And it's from a chapter I love called Intimacy. And it's a beautiful chapter. Inch 10. So if someone is like wanting to read that one, although I always tell people, please read from beginning to end. Just because it's poetry doesn't mean that there isn't a journey involved, a story involved. Read from beginning to end. So it goes like this. I miss loving someone so strongly that my breathing fails me. I miss those moments, silent but palpable. I miss when I'm known well enough to have my mind read. I miss living awake because these days I only live asleep, dreaming of the beyond, escaping the routine. I miss those kisses full of madness when you know that your lover's lips are more yours than his. I miss those days when I touched the sky, days that are now recorded in every joint of my anatomy. How to erase experience, how to erase the knowledge of something so unique and special. How to erase you from me when everything you are is mixed with mine. How does one erase experience? I love that one.
I love that. It reminds me, there was a movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah, where he has to basically, can you erase your love? It just reminded me of that when I read it for the first time. So I want to start. Maybe you can read one at the end too to close out.
Okay,
that would be really nice. I want to start because I honestly was going to bring a tape measure to this discussion, because I've measured the space from the heart to my head. I'd never heard that before. And 18 inches, from what I understand in reading your book, it comes from something I think that your father said to you about the sort of distance from your head to your heart. And I wanted you to talk a little bit more about that. And I checked, and it is kind of true. Mine was like 19, but I did check.
Well, the average distance, some people,
the average
17 and a half. And I say that in the book, in the introduction, that is the average distance. I had gone into trouble, and I wrote about this in Letters to the Men I Have Loved, but I didn't expand much on the story, what really happened. I just said I got into trouble. And so I always knew that I wanted to expand on this concept in another book. I just wasn't ready for it. I wasn't ready to be as vulnerable as I've been in this book. And mind you, my other work is vulnerable, but this takes it to another level. I'm sharing experiences that I haven't even shared with my mother, and I'm very close to her. And for different reasons, and I say it in the book. But for me, I just love the concept so much, and I just felt that it really impacted my life when my dad taught me that concept of walking your fingers from your heart to your head, and the average distance in every human being is 18 inches, and every decision we make in our lives is based on 18 inches, because in the end, we're making decisions with our heart or with our heads. And then I realized you could find a balance at some point, right? And that's where the soul is involved, right? But when I decided to write about this, I was like, I need to tell these stories. There's people that will, perhaps find it relatable. And and that's where the idea of 18 inches came from. My dad sharing, kind of screaming that, yelling at me, 18 inches in Spanish, like a real Dominican man, Dominican father. Michelle, 18 inches, 18 inches. I'm like, dude, I had a concussion.
And
what do you mean?
And was he basically saying to you, like, use your head? Was that at the time?
That was his idea. He wanted me to learn to use my head while making decisions, because I've always been a very passionate person since I was a child. I've always lived according to my heart. And, I've made decisions. Most of my decisions are based on emotions. I mean, I moved across country to pursue a career in acting when everybody was like, what do you mean?
Right.
It was, a decision that I made with my heart. Everything I've done has always been with, making decisions with my heart. And he was like, you need to start thinking with your head. You need to find that balance. And that's what I try to do after that. Did it necessarily pan out that way all the time? No. I feel that now I've become more of that individual that has more of the balance. But mind you, when he taught me that, I was 24 years old, 23, 24, something like that. So now I'm in my 30s. It's like
different. Yeah.
I've been around the block a few times.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was thinking about it because I feel like I am the opposite in a lot of ways, which is less, I feel like so often it's like women think with their hearts and men think with their heads or with their whatevers. But, I think
with other
that was right. But, it's interesting. Like I was thinking about it as I knew I was going to talk to you, because I was like, I actually don't think the answer is, I don't think one or the other is better. You know, I think, as you said, it's like, it's kind of moving towards both, that you get to the soul, right? Where you have this, because I think otherwise you're kind of either living as a completely rational person and you're not experiencing life and you're not experiencing your feelings. And the other is like, you're living in a way where your feelings are dominating you and you're probably not being so thoughtful and maybe you're getting in trouble. But if you can kind of find a center between the two, you can, I don't know, it seems to be a more fruitful existence. But there's so much that stands in the way sometimes of having the two meet, you know? And you really get at that in your poetry. You know, there's a line in one of your poems that I want to say, and then we can talk a little bit about it. But the past is not the past if it continues to live with you. And, you know, in a lot of ways, like, that's like a cognitive thing, right? Where it's like you're just thinking about the past all the time. But it's also an emotional thing, right? Like you're carrying the past in your heart. And I wanted to sort of ask you what you meant by that, as a writer, but also as an emotional person who's been in love and, you know, who's had obviously some terrible things happen, you know.
I think for me, when I wrote that, it came from two different places. One place was in terms of the romantic side. It's like, if I want to, you know, meet my husband someday, and if I want to have, you know, my family and this kind of life and this kind of love, I can't continue to live thinking about the past. I need to let it go. That was one. And then the other was for the painful circumstances that I've experienced. If I don't forgive and let go, because I believe that to live a bright future, you have to forgive. You can't keep it all within, because then you're just going to be living with it and it's going to affect different areas of your life. So for that line, I opened a very difficult chapter. And it was something, you know, I don't want to tell people because I want people to read it.
Right. I don't want to give away too much, but
I don't want to give it away too much, but it was a very difficult experience because I was so young and you know, being abused, violated. It's something that not too many people speak on openly when it happens to you. And for me, I was one of those people, and I carried it with me.
If ever, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes some people don't ever, you know, it's like, I get really upset sometimes when I hear people say, well, if this happened to her, why did she take so long to share the experience or to speak about it? Everyone's story is different, and everyone deals with pain differently. And for me, I know that I didn't speak about it for many different reasons, and shame was one of them. And so for me, when I feel that while I was writing this book, I was liberating myself from different painful traumas that I had sort of placed in a vault. And and I realized I don't even know where this person is, but I made the point of forgiving and letting go, because if not, I was going to continue carrying that, and it was affecting my relationships, my personal relationships with men. And it's not something that I wanted to divulge immediately in a relationship, but I never did, and it affected the trust I had in men. And while I was doing a lot of soul searching while writing this book, I was like, okay, I need to let go of this because I need to learn how to trust. And that was one of the things that I needed to come to terms with and face. So yeah, I believe that for you to live the best version of yourself, you need to let go of the things that hold you back. Obviously, there's beautiful memories from our past.
Right.
So those memories, let's take them, towards the future, of course, but the painful memories and the things that don't serve you, leave it in the past.
Right. You talk a little, I mean, I tend to not look into people before I talk to them because I like to be finding out certain things for the first time with that sort of wonder. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about like your origins as a poet. I know I believe you were born in the Dominican Republic and moved to Miami. And I would imagine that, viewing yourself as a poet is something that probably took time. I know for other writers too, it's a thing that you're not like born and you're like, I'm a poet, you have to come into it. And I'm wondering, where your desire to write poetry came from, like if there were cultural influences for you and, and sort of how, if that was your real first love and how it sort of plays into your other career endeavors as well, because you do a lot of things.
Yeah, I do a lot of things. Have to.
That's right. Exactly.
First, I feel that, for me, poetry just came so natural. I compare it to when a child loves to sing. I had a fascination with words since I was very young. I learned how to read and write at 4. My mother is a teacher.
Did you learn English or Spanish first?
Spanish first. My mother is a teacher, and both my grandmother and my mother, they've always loved to write, and we've just written about different things. Like my mom and my grandmother. My grandmother loved to keep journals. Like when she passed away last year, we had like all of her journals. It was fascinating.
It's amazing. Yeah.
She wrote her life story, like a biography in a journal. It was amazing. My mom has always really written more like religious work, like Christian stuff. And that's her inspiration comes from God. And, I'm a secular writer.
Right.
I throw in there my beliefs here and there, but I would never consider a book that shares faith with sex a Christian book. I don't think I could ever be in the Christian list or a spiritual.
That could be an interesting genre, though. The Christian erotica.
Right? I actually was laughing because I was looking at my searched songs on Apple Music, and I started cracking up. It's like I have WAP, and then I have in the name of Jesus something. Like I was like, this is who I am. I've never lied.
That's
it's like break the chains or something like that. It was like
multifaceted.
I started cracking up. I was like, I gotta love myself too sometimes, because it's like, wow. But I come from that kind of creative household. My father's a musician. For us, art was a way of living. But they were also very conservative Christian, and there was a lot of things that were taboo, and they didn't necessarily pursue their art. My father pursued his art as a career, as a hobby, and he has great stories to tell in his 20s. But then he just settled into, the career he studied.
Right.
Like most Latinos, right? This is what you're taught, go to college and, but for me, I loved poetry, just like how the singer loves to sing. I kept a diary since I was a child. And I was just, I'm fascinated with words. And I kept on writing poetry, and I always knew I was going to publish a book since I was little. I've always been determined, determined person. And then my life took different routes. I joined, I got cast in a local television show as a teen. And then when I started college, I started taking theater, and I fell in love with the theater, but I couldn't sing. So I was like, I'm not going to move to New York. I love film. So I started studying film, and I moved to LA. And so I just decided I'm going to just do it all. Right. And that's how I ended up. But when I started calling myself a poet, that was when I was a teen, to be honest, because I was already writing so much. I knew that my heart, that was my number one passion, poetry. That was just it, you know, and I just love words.
Yeah.
Like, for me, a great song is a song that has great lyrics. Like, I
And
love
poetry. Yeah.
It's poetry.
Yeah. Totally.
So that's when I knew that I was a poet, when I was a teenager, and and the rest is history, I guess.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
Do you?
But my inspirations, you had asked me about my inspirations.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Definitely poetry in Spanish. My favorite poet is, and a lot of people know this, Pablo Neruda.
Mm-hmm.
I love Pablo Neruda, and I love many Latin poets. And I love Gustavo Adolfo Becker. To me, the Spanish language is stunning. And that was like, I feel that my style of writing was inspired heavily by Neruda.
I was going to say it must be interesting, because I know one of your books was published as bilingual, both in Spanish and English in the same book. And, you know, there's a reason that Spanish is one of the Romance languages. You know, I think it's so interesting to think about poetry in two ways, which is to be read, but also to be spoken. And, you know, it's one thing to read something, but when you hear a poem in Spanish, I don't speak Spanish, but there is like a certain energy to the way that Spanish sounds versus the way that English sounds. And so I was so interested when I was reading your poetry. I'm like, if you think of your poetry when you're writing it in both languages that you speak, you know, because it has a certain cadence that isn't exactly, I don't know, isn't exactly totally just English, you know, like it has a different kind of nature.
There's certain poems that I immediately think of in Spanish. Like that last poem that I shared,
Mm-hmm.
the How to Erase Experience, I wrote that in Spanish.
So interesting.
First. I wrote that in Spanish first, and then I translated it for this book. And it was one of those things that I was in the mood, and I missed loving someone. I missed that connection with someone. And it was just like, I just wrote it, and I don't edit my work so much. I feel that it loses, when you edit too much, it loses the rawness
and the rhythm sometimes. Yeah.
Yes. And that's one issue, you know, when this book was getting proofread, I was like, no, it has to be this, and it has to be this. And it's just like, that's how I am. It's like it's like I'm singing in a weird way, but not, because I can't sing.
Yeah.
But,
no, but it's sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
I totally get it.
I tell people when they read my work, pay attention to the commas and the periods I've placed. It's for a reason. It's so you could stop. You just don't like read it so fast that it doesn't make sense.
I was gonna
take your time.
Yeah. Well, they're love poems in a lot of ways, or they're sort of longing poems, you know.
Yes.
But I that sort of segues nicely into this, you know, my favorite poem in the book. What section is it? And I'm looking, hold on. Maybe if people have it. Yes, it's an identity. And it is, you kind of pose a question, I guess, to yourself, but to the reader. And I wanted to pose the question back to you because I'm interested in what your response would be. It's, if you could unlearn everything you've been taught and relearn through the pathway of your soul, comma, who would you be? So I guess I'm asking you that question.
Remembers.
The soul remembers, exactly. Sorry, I forgot to read that part. The soul remembers, yeah.
What was your question about that?
Well, I'm saying,
you're asking me the question.
If you can learn, who would you be if you could unlearn everything you've been taught and relearn through your soul? It's a big question. It's not a casual question.
No, I'll tell you, I feel like this book was me doing that, me trying to unlearn everything I've been taught. Listen, I feel that as human beings, we've been conditioned by our parents and our environment, and our parents have been conditioned by their parents and by other people. And I think that sometimes our conditioning impedes us from reaching certain levels because we constantly think, well, no, I can't do that because that's wrong. But it's wrong because your father, your mother said it was wrong, or your environment said it was wrong, or your religion said it was wrong. But if we actually try to unlearn everything and just made decision based on our gut, which I think is like the connection to the divine, the soul, right?
Right.
And more about what's right to our soul. Because for everyone, right and wrong is different. And if we were to do that, I think that we would become who we're destined to be.
Right.
Who we were meant to be. And sometimes it takes us a while to get there. I know I personally had a lot of unlearning to do.
And that's a great word, yeah.
When I go back and visit my family, I have tons of respect for my parents. I love my parents like so much. And, I stay quiet when, they say certain things out of respect, because certain things are their beliefs. And not saying that my beliefs are completely opposite of theirs, but I've become my own woman, and I've asked myself all of these questions, and I've tried to really get to know my soul and the essence of the divine in me, that connection, right? And for me, I had a lot of unlearning to do. And I continue to do so. But I feel it's liberated me, and it's made me pursue my passions, pursue the things that I love. If I did everything that I was told, you and I wouldn't be speaking right now.
Right.
I don't think I would be. I wouldn't fulfill my purpose on this earth.
Yeah. It's so interesting too, because when we're kids, the world that we know is only we can only know how we're raised in the world that we're brought into. And so you can be, exposed to really terrible ideas or really amazing ideas, but it's kind of what you got. And as you sort of go into the world and meet different people, you realize, oh my God, like the way I was raised was just very specific. I think everybody has that, right? Everybody has a way that they're raised. And yeah, this process of, and this isn't taught in school, but this sort of growing up is actually, not only is it learning, it's unlearning. Like that is a huge process. And I don't always think of it that way, but it really, you sort of think it's always, moving forward, and aging is always about growth and becoming wise. But it's also so much about losing old ideas and shedding beliefs about yourself, about the world. Exactly. And it's just really interesting that this idea that our soul is sort of, we find our soul through shedding those skins and through unlearning, I think, and through, unlearning our conditioning, because yeah, I think who we truly are is not necessarily who we are when we're born. I don't, like, I don't know. I think it's a process, definitely.
I think there's that essence of our soul, definitely, since we're kids.
Yes.
That's why we're attracted to certain things, and we're driven towards certain areas. And then the fear that exists in the world, which is anything that's opposite of love, right? That fear begins to take control of our daily lives, our actions, and our desires and our wants. There's so many people that they dream about doing certain things or being a certain way, and they don't ever do it because they're afraid of what are people going to think. Well, am I going to go to hell? It's like all of these things, right? And what worked with me was more about doing so much inner work, that I started focusing on different areas of my life. And I was like, okay, well, I want to grow in this area. So now let me look at the entire area of my life as a whole. This is what I've been taught to do. And you could do this with business too, not just like your personal life. This is what I've been taught to do. This is the advice I've been given. It doesn't necessarily feel that I feel any better. Let me look into what other people are doing. Let me see if that works, right? Like, just, to be open-minded is something special, because if you're not open-minded, you're going to remain on the same path, and a very narrow path. And it's important to listen to other people. You don't have to receive and apply everything that other people say, but it's good to listen and just to think, to make your own conclusion, not just doing things because that's what you were told to do.
Right. And also, I think questioning, in terms of the way you approach your sort of love style, or your like attachment style, as it's sometimes called, like learning that attachment style doesn't have to be forever just because it's what you were doing before. Like, it's clear, in the book, you talk a lot about when you fall in love, you fall in love. It's not a casual thing. It's not casual. It's not, and there was a time where you weren't really interested in love that was not obsessive and emotional and fraught. And I think that there's this sense of like, well, that's how I am. That's how I'm always going to be. And if you rest on your laurels, then it certainly will be that way. But I think if like there's so much room for self-examination, especially if you write poetry, that like you can actually come to new conclusions about yourself, about the kind of person that you want to be. And it's clear that like this book was really that for you.
It's interesting because when you said that, all I could keep on hearing was accepting destiny and like you gotta move on, right? But also I realized that that's how I've been living my entire life, right? That I can't live without you type of love, that passionate, that heart-wrenching, like that type of love. And mind you, when it's high, it's high. Good. It's good. But when it's low, it is low. And I realized, you know what? I don't want to experience that kind of low anymore. So it's more about, okay, you've always gone after this. Be a little smarter now. Start thinking with your head a little bit. Find that balance. Find some, look, give, not just look, but give an opportunity to the people that really consider your feelings. Not just that they give you that sense of passion. And mind you, I believe love grows with time. It's really difficult for passion to grow. you want to have a little bit of passion in there, right? But
yes.
there has to be a balance. Like, does this person have the qualities? This is what I think. This is how I think now. And maybe this is why I haven't experienced heartbreak like that recently
in a long time, right?
I'm thinking about actually putting it into effect here. The balance.
It's such a, I don't know, it's such a delicate balance in terms of like, when you have feelings, right? Like that's never going to go away. I think like we're attracted to who we're attracted to. But again, I think it's like, it's the kind of love that makes you crazy, that the toxic love that makes you crazy. That I also just think it's like playing sports or like doing something athletic. Like as you get older, it's just harder on the bones and the body. Like it's just not, it's not the same kind of, and that's where I think the head can come in and be like, remember how things were, or kind of like look at this situation, kind of use your head. And going back to your dad's message in that you lay out in the beginning of the book, like there are opportunities to use the mind, right, when it comes to your feelings. And yeah, again, like that the soul is sort of this in-between place.
Because the soul, in my opinion, is our essence. So obviously there's still going to be what human beings, like those mistakes, right? But it is certainly, in my opinion, the wise part within us, because it's already seen. If it makes any sense, it's already seen.
Yeah,
I love this saying that we choose our parents. I love
that's really interesting.
I never really believed in that growing up, but when I heard it, it resonated. Like we choose the people we're going to come to earth with, like to do this school and to grow with. And if you really think about it, that's what that's the purpose of relationships and people in general, to evolve, to grow. If everyone was good to each other and was wonderful, we would never experience pain. We would never grow. The soul would never evolve. So I love that idea that the soul is like the wise factor.
Middle, yeah. And that I keep thinking of the image in the poem you read in the beginning of, you sort of ask for growth. What did you say? You ask for growth and you get
for growth. And I was given rain.
I was given rain. It's so good.
Nothing grows without rain.
Yeah. Even though we think of rain as something that we don't want, as gloomy, right?
Oh, I'm in California right now.
You'd love some.
We are praying for rain.
Yeah, you guys need some rain for sure.
We need the rain.
Yeah. Well, Mirtha, I want to make time for people to ask questions. Thank you so much for answering my questions and for talking to me about your beautiful book. I'm going to try to do this, hopefully. I think I press ask a question. Yes. Oh, here we go. Okay, this is so fun. So the first question is from Kathy Suero. Can you see this?
I actually can, but I don't think I have the same order.
Oh, okay. I was going to the bottom. Wait, let's see here.
Oh, wait.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, I see.
So in finding your grandma's journals that I suppose are a magnificent body of raw work about her life, will that inspire you to write something to pay homage or honor her and the woman that helped shape you?
I feel that I carry my grandmother every day. She was a very inspiring woman for me and a very strong woman. I don't think I would be as strong as I am if it wasn't for my grandmother imparting her strength to my mother. And so I think I carry her with me. her journals were more like biographical, like the things that were happening in the family, and there's certain for me they're amazing just because I was able to learn about my family more and the things that were happening prior to my birth. I don't know, maybe one day I'll write a novel or something. I don't know.
Maybe of her work. Yeah.
There wasn't anything that juicy though for a novel. Like she lived a pretty calm life. There wasn't like a lost love or something like that. She married my grandfather at 16, and that was.
And there wasn't some sort of like, sometimes you find
anything like
that shocking. I just accessed this chat. I don't know. Can you see this on the side?
Yes.
Oh my God. People are saying such nice things. I didn't see any of this while we were talking, but thank you to everyone who said such nice things.
I hope I can read it afterwards.
That's what I was thinking. I really want to read it. Chelsea Teneo says, Mirtha, te quiero, which I know. I know what that means.
That's mi hermana dominicana.
Oh.
Hi, thank you for sharing your beautiful. I'm like going ahead and reading. Sorry, God.
Well, I'm gonna
questions, or do you want to choose the questions? Because I don't think we could answer all of them, but
someone yeah, I don't think we have all the time in the world. So, that's a good question though. I think you were going to read it. I'm not sure who put it in there, but it's Lauren Sullivan says, hi, thank you for sharing your beautiful poetry with the world. I was curious if Mirtha has any poems that she's written but doesn't want to share with the world and feels like it's not the right time to share them yet. Is there a gut instinct that guides you in terms of which poetry you're going to share?
Definitely there's a gut instinct. I feel like that's my soul, like we were talking earlier. I feel that the poems that maybe I wouldn't have felt comfortable sharing before are in this book.
That is a good way to put it.
Yeah, so I think it's here, and I'm sharing aspects of my life in which I haven't been necessarily proud of, and for me, I
went out for a second. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I shared parts of my experiences that I haven't necessarily been proud of, but I feel that that's my duty as an artist to share these experiences and these parts of myself. So I love to hear when people feel that they can connect with my work because maybe they've been feeling the same. So yeah,
that's a good reason to read this book, actually. to read your book, because you do get, I think you're saying, the poems that you weren't willing to share before.
Yes, definitely.
Someone asked, and you can say no to this, but someone asked if you can read one of your poems in Spanish. Or would you? That would probably be hard right now, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, none of these
are translated.
None of these poems are translated. I'm sorry, but I will keep that in mind. Maybe I'll put up some
on Instagram or something.
YouTube, yeah. I want to work on my YouTube more now.
That's great.
We're still in the pandemic. I'm becoming better at this technology stuff.
You have to stream everything. Sorry, I'm just looking here for one more. Oh, this is someone says, Mirtha, with all that you have gone through personally and that you've shared through your work, have you found that love that you've described yearning for?
No.
But that might not be even, maybe the question is talking more about personal love.
Oh.
Maybe I'm being positive.
Okay. I have not found the romantic love that I have been writing about, that I seek. I think that person is like extremely close. But one love that I did find was the love within me. And a lot of times we say, oh, self-love, but not a lot of people understand what self-love is. I feel that to really understand self-love, it has to come from accepting yourself. And to accept yourself, you must face the dark parts of yourself. And I think that once I took the time to actually work on myself and learn myself, I was able to start accepting who I am and forgiving myself for certain things that I feel were my mistakes and maybe certain flaws, and I write about that in this book. The same way my flaws are part of me, so are the positive sides of me, right? And I learned to accept myself, and a lot of times the world tries to knock us down more times than build us up. And we're constantly affected by people's opinions of us. So for me, once I started not caring so much about people's opinions and really accepting myself and accepting that my creator created me and cares for me, loves me, and put light within me because I'm created from love. So once I started to learn to embody that divine love, I started accepting myself. And to me, that's the most important love that I've learned. And and I write about that in this book. That's why it's so special for me.
Yeah. I think it's very true. And it's sort of, I think one can lead to the other in a way.
Definitely. But it all starts with ourselves, like us making that decision to want to accept ourselves and love ourselves, right? But love really doesn't occur until you accept. Like if you think about it, I always like to turn it around with other people, because we're always taught to love other people, but not necessarily love ourselves. So for me, when I fell in love with different people, or learn to love friends and family members, I noticed that I loved them because I accepted their flaws as well. So how many times do we say, I'm going to accept my flaws? That self-love begins there, accepting, forgiveness. It's all rooted in that.
Yeah. I think we have time for one more question, and I personally want to know the answer to this. Have your parents been able to read your books, and what are their thoughts? Do they have favorites?
My mother is like my number one fan. She reads all my books and she doesn't judge me. She's great. I don't know what she's gonna think with this one, but so far with the other books, she's always been extremely supportive. My father is extremely proud of me, but he has this weird thing. He does not read my books, nor does he watch me in movies or in TV. Like if I have to kiss someone, he just freaks out and he needs to walk out of the room, or like he just can't watch it. And he can't read the books either. Imagine reading about his little girl and these boys, right? And these experiences. So I leave it at that. He's actually in Dominican Republic right now. So I'm like, oh my God, amazing. The book dropped and he can't get it over there. So I don't want him to read it.
That's such a thing for writers in general.
For the title and the premise came from him, which he knows. He jokes and he tells me if I'm going to give him part of the royalties. Or I'm like, I'm going to buy you a nice present, Daddy.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, like he knows, and he's very proud. But if my mom has a favorite poem, I think my mom's favorite poem is There I Still Will Be, from Letters to the Men I Have Loved. I think for her that in the end that it does not top that poem. And I think for many people, it's a beautiful poem about unconditional love. And she just loves that poem. She loves that poem so much that she taught it in one of her classes.
That's an amazing full circle moment.
Yeah. She taught it in one of her classes. Yeah.
Does she teach in Miami? She teaches in Miami?
She's retired now, but yeah,
okay.
She taught in Miami.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for doing this. This has been amazing. And I've had such a good time talking and sort of engaging in these issues, engaging in all of these topics. I could talk about these things for hours. And we've inspired him to let his hair down with our hair.
We're like twins now.
Yeah, I was kind of jealous.
The three of us.
Not gonna lie.
And thank you everybody so much. Everyone in the comments. I'm gonna have to read these comments. And hopefully everyone who's here has picked up Mirtha's book and, we'll read it and read it again. It's one of those books that you can pick up over and over.
Yes. If you haven't, I dropped a link in chat just a little bit up. And also there's a button in the very middle of this. I'm not sure what side I'm on for y'all, but there's a green button in the very middle of the screen.
Right there.
At the bottom.
Yes, right there.
I have 18 inches here. So I'm gonna even put a little smiley in here, just because
I could say something.
I'm feeling the love. Yeah, you can say stuff too.
That's good flavor. Definitely drop something in the
God, so many nice things. Thank you so much to everybody who tuned in and stayed and asked questions and was engaged. I see that so many people also just gave their own insights about love and their own stories and about conditioning. So it's super interesting to read. Do we just turn it off, or how?
I was gonna say a couple words, namely.
Oh, okay, please.
Thank you to the both of you for doing this, taking time aside and having this talk, letting us host. I think it does a lot for people now who just crave this content and really get to feel closer to you guys. So thank you so much.
One more thing. I know that many of the people that tuned in, most people are in New York City. I just want to let you guys know I was incredibly saddened by not being able to be there in person because of the pandemic. But I just want to let you guys know, you guys rock. I love you guys so much. My best experiences touring has always been New York City. And I hope that when this is all over, we are due for a live session. Thank you guys.
I'm in New York, and someone shouted out Washington Heights. So shout out to Washington Heights.
I'm not from New York, but let me tell you, New York has shown me so much love.
Queens.
I feel that it's maybe because I'm so many.
There is a lot of Dominican energy in New York. That's why amazing Dominican energy.
Yes.
I'm trying to bring it to LA.
All right, guys.
All right.
Thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you so much to everybody, and thank you, Mirtha. Thank you for having me. See everybody soon. Keep reading; it'll keep you sane.
Thank you, Mirtha. Thank you, Karah. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.